Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Your Money, Your Mission, the show that helps you maximize your wealth by turning complex financial situations into actionable advice. Powered by Johnson Financial Group. Let's get today's listener question.
Hey, Kelly. My name is Sarah. I recently finished up grad school a few years ago. I'm a homeowner and make a good income. That said, I still have student loan debt remaining and a mortgage to pay, but I also don't want to miss out on life. I'd like to travel and share experiences with my friends, but also want to make sure I'm setting myself up for a successful financial future.
Thank you for sharing that with us. That seems like a lot to unpack here, but this is a really common situation. A lot of you who are successful and career-oriented put life on hold while you're pursuing your education and your profession. But you want to move forward now. You want to continue to enjoy life, but maximize your finances. How do you do that? Especially when there's student loan debt, mortgages, those kinds of things hanging over your head. Well, there is a way to do it, and I have the perfect guest here to explain how she was able to. Jillian Scheidegger is an attorney and partner in the law firm Cafferty and Scheidegger. Jillian has served as president of her local bar association, is married, and she and her husband Cole have a busy life between work, their 2 dogs, and their love of travel. Jillian also happens to be a good friend who I've known for years. Jillian, welcome to Your Money, Your Mission. This caller's question sounds a little familiar, right?
Well, first off, thank you, Kelly, for having me. I'm happy to be here. Yes, I mean, oddly enough, that sounds very similar to my situation. And I thankfully had a really nice plan to actually pay off my debt, thanks to Johnson Bank.
Oh, that's very nice. So tell me how you started. How did this, so I know that you graduated, you were pursuing your career, you got married between graduation, between law school and actually the time that you joined Cafferty Law Office. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
So I was an intern or law clerk with Pat Cafferty, who's now my law partner in law school. And then I had a position available then as soon as I graduated law school. But yes, I did all the big life things. I graduated law school, I think 2 to 3 weeks later, got married, and then a few months later bought a house. So during that time, accumulated lots of debt, and kind of in the background, obviously looming was my student loan debt from law school. But given deferment with loans, I didn't really understand the impact of what that debt was at that point because I wasn't yet in a position to have to pay it. My 6 months hadn't hit. So I was a mortgage holder and debt holder at that point, but really didn't comprehend the vast responsibility that I had taken on.
So when did that hit you?
I'd say 6 months when I got the first notification or bill in the mail from the federal government telling me how much I actually owed on a monthly basis. And I remember feeling crippled and just horrified by what that actually contemplated from me and my husband on a monthly basis.
So then what did you decide to do?
Panic. Yeah, I mean, realistically, I think I took the approach because, again, I had lots of friends in a similar position as I was in that, well, you just get on the federal repayment plan. I think I, initially provided some information to them, got on an income-driven plan, and thought that was that. And I was going to be paying these loans off for probably the rest of my life. And I think it had been somewhat normalized to me through the law school process that this is a thing that you have to carry. You have law school debt. People have that. I talked to lots of lawyers who were in their 40s and even 50s who still had law school debt. So it didn't really, I think, hit home 100% until my husband and I started talking about, I think, life goals, what that contemplated. I mean, that my student loan debt was more than my mortgage payment. Overall, total amount of debt that I had was more than even the mortgage we had. And realizing that, our joke always was, well, that's the payment on our lake home. But, we had the equivalent of 2 homes in terms of debt at that point. So I kind of made peace with it, but at the same time, just was very frustrated that this was my future. And I didn't really feel like I had a lot of options. And it wasn't honestly until I talked to you at a local bar event that Johnson Bank had sponsored and had a conversation with you about actually your own experience through Johnson and the program that they offered for lawyers, doctors, and I believe dentists about loan consolidation, that I started to think, well, hey, maybe there's a different option here.
That's great. Yeah. And I did have a similar experience where much like everybody else, once you graduate from law school, your head's down working, and that student loan debt, you might even be paying on it, but you don't realize that you're not making much progress on it. And so I was able to connect you with one of my partners. And what happened then? How did she approach that with you?
Yes. So I think I was 2, maybe 3 years out of law school at that point. Kind of like you said, I was making my payments, not chipping away at the debt in any actual substantive way, which was frustrating. And then I connected with Marcia Bannicky at Johnson Bank, and I immediately felt at ease that there was actually a solution, that there was a way to actually find a path to financial freedom and actually pay this debt off in a reasonable time frame, not on some 25+ year plan. And I remember sitting down with Marcia and immediately feeling kind of at ease and calm that this was something that was actually a possibility for my life, that this was going to be able to be gone at some point. And we started the process then.
And that started with a financial plan and then the consolidation plan. Is that right?
Yes. Yeah. And I didn't consider myself financially illiterate before I met with Marcia. The joke I think of many lawyers is, we go to law school because we don't want to do math. And my husband is he's the math and science guy. So I deferred a lot of that to him and felt comfortable with things, trusted him in terms of our budget and things like that. But it wasn't until he and I both sat down with Marcia and used the tools that Johnson provided to us in terms of setting up a financial plan that I felt like not only was paying our debt down possible, but doing so in a way that was comfortable for our lifestyle and the goals that we had. Because as a lawyer, I work really long hours. My husband he's a project manager through LabCorp, so he works really hard, long hours. But again, we're both highly compensated, which is great. So we want to enjoy that. And I had a lot of friends and family members who had paid off student loans, other types of debt, but hadn't really got to enjoy life along the way. And, it was important to us, kind of work hard, play hard, to be able to travel, to be able to, drive decent cars, live in a nice home. And it never felt like that was possible. And it really wasn't until I sat down with Marcia and that my husband Cole and I went through a budget with her, set up our financial plan, and realized, we could have it all. And that was incredibly reassuring.
And so then you put that plan into place, and then what happened?
So we put the plan, and I will tell you, it was shockingly easy. I got all my loan information to Marcia. She took care of everything, got everything set up, and it wasn't long after I provided her my information that sat down with her and Anissa Dunn at Johnson Bank, and we signed our closing documents for the loan. And when I tell you it was easy, it really, truly made it was so easy. I felt like I did 2 things pretty much, and Marcia handled everything. So I was incredibly grateful that the process went so smoothly. And in fact, during the process, at one point, of course, the federal government made a mistake, and when Johnson paid off my loans, the high interest loans that they were going to take under the consolidation plan, the federal government unfortunately applied that towards my low interest loans. And I remember panicking, thinking, oh my gosh, what a nightmare this is going to be to get this undone, and feeling like it was my responsibility to get this fixed. And literally one phone call to Marcia, and it was handled within a day. And that's when I started to kind of understand that, Johnson Bank was there for us, not just in helping us have a plan, but there was a relationship there. And I swear it's magic. You need something done, and my financial team at Johnson Bank has always been able to accomplish it at the drop of a hat. And it's just really comforting to have people, the relationship through this process has been tremendous.
Hey everyone, it's your host Kelly Mold, and I hope you're enjoying this episode of Your Money, Your Mission. I just wanted to remind you that this show is about your money. So to celebrate the launch, we're currently giving away $1,000 in Visa gift cards. It's really simple to enter. To take advantage, just click the link in the show notes, wherever you're listening. All right, let's get back to the show. So Jillian, what were some of the steps that you had to take out of the gate to pull this all together?
So, the conversation I had with Marcia early on was, one of my concerns is the structure of the way kind of my compensation ends up shaking out. Usually at the end of the year is I receive a bulk of my income that way in the form of really a bonus. So my concern was, on a cash flow basis, making a monthly payment, going to the bank, giving a check, whatever it may be, that wasn't something that really was going to work for our situation. And I remember saying to Marcia, well, can I just make a lump sum payment and pay off my loan for the year each time? And she was like, well, that doesn't really work kind of in a traditional loan sense. But Marcia was able to help me. Actually, so what we did was we set up a separate checking account that was only dedicated towards paying off that loan amount. So what I did is I would fund it in a lump sum each year, the amount that I needed to cover the payments on a monthly basis. And Marcia, I'm very grateful, she had it set up that it would just auto debit out of that checking account. And then the nice thing is when there were times where Cole, when he would get bonuses or promotions, raises, things like that, or at the end of the year, if we had a little more money extra that we wanted to set aside and dedicate towards the loan, I would just put that in that checking account. And I know some people talk about in terms of debt, like having an envelope method. This was kind of my envelope method of having this dedicated separate account. By putting it aside, it kind of felt like it wasn't my money. It was out of sight, out of mind, but I could add to it. And then the plan always was at the end of the year, any excess left in that account, we would just make a bigger payment at any given point. So it gave us a little more flexibility beyond just making a monthly payment. But the great thing is Cole and I then did not feel that monthly payment coming out of our day-to-day kind of a checking account, and it didn't really impact our day-to-day budget that way.
And so you were able to pay that loan off in how long did you process?
So I graduated law school in 2015. So in total, 7 years from graduation, but I'd have to go back and see, but I think it was 2 to 3 years after law school that I signed up with the program with JFG. So I'd say 5 years from consolidating everything with Johnson.
5 years.
Mm-hmm.
A much better time frame than the rest of your life.
Yes. Yeah. And if you had told me when I graduated law school, hey, you're going to have your student loan debt paid off before 40, I would have said, how? Am I going to win the lottery? My law partner had said to me at one point, it'd be great if you could pay off your student loan debt, before you have children, and what freedom that's going to give you for future life choices. And I remember thinking, like, this guy's nuts. There's just no way this is going to happen. So to be in that position is really, really wonderful.
So Jillian, it's great that you were able to take advantage of those consolidation programs and that loan strategy, the payoff strategy. But it also took some discipline on your own part, right? That you said you had to kind of ignore that money as not part of your income right now. So for someone just graduating now with that type of debt, what would you recommend that they do?
So my number one piece of advice is, you don't know whether this is a solution for you, obviously, until you sit down. So reach out. There's no harm. Again, I can't say enough good things about the team at Johnson Bank. Personally, my banker is Marcia Bannicky, and Marcia's been so wonderful. Obviously, I've worked with you, Kelly, and Anissa Dunn, and you all have been so kind to work with. So there's no shame in this. I think there's a lot of shame behind the amount of debt that people walk out of law school with, or any graduate program. So I encourage people to reach out. It's good to know your options, and then you can begin the process. And maybe you initially aren't in a position to do the consolidation, because you do have to have a decent amount of money to kind of put down to begin this process. But once you do, and I think it's something to work towards, it's great, but resist the temptation of, you get this, it's your first kind of big kid paycheck. You've got a job, you're a professional now, and taking that money and doing, things that you can, in theory, afford to do. But instead put it towards your debt, because to have that financial freedom, it was a weight on me that I didn't really realize until I fully paid it off. And I feel light as a feather at this point, knowing that that's behind me.
Thank you, Jillian, and thank you for listening to Your Money, Your Mission. If you have a question wherever you're listening to this episode, you can simply go to the show notes and it will say submit a question. Click on the link, write your question, and hit submit. Also, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on any future episodes of Your Money, Your Mission, the podcast designed to turn complex financial situations into actionable advice, powered by Johnson Financial Group.
Products and services offered by these Johnson Financial Group companies, Johnson Bank, and Johnson Wealth, Inc.